Today I wanted to talk about the psychological problem that many of us suffers a lot from, both in our life with the relationship with ourselves, but also it gives a lot of consequences in our relationship with others, and that is the feeling of anxiety. So maybe some of you or many of you might have some experience already in your life of how it is to have anxiety, how it is to feel it, and how to live with anxiety. And maybe some of you actually are not aware of ever having had the feeling of anxiety, and then you're very lucky. Or it might be that you are not aware actually of the signs of anxiety, because they are not always that evident, and it might be that you actually have anxiety and that it actually gives consequences in your life. So that is why I wanted to deep dive in this video to share my knowledge about what is anxiety, and what function does it have for us? Like, why do we have anxiety? How does it serve us? And also in the end, like, to share some techniques on how you can deal with your anxiety. How can you regulate your anxiety, and how can you have another perspective of your anxiety, so that you maybe actually might even find it helpful in the end. So I hope this video will give you some more knowledge and some more understanding and acceptance and help to yourself. So what is anxiety then? I would say anxiety is an inner sensation, a feeling that signals to you that there is a threat somewhere. So anxiety is actually giving you knowledge, it's giving you a heads up that something is threatening in the situation right now. And it's quite similar to fear, since fear is, a basic core emotion, and fear signals to us that a threat is close. A threat is in our closest environment, and it helps our body to react immediately to the threat. So fear is a very important core emotion. It has to do with our survival. One often distinguishes between fear and anxiety in that fear you often feel when there is like an external threat, when there is like an actual perceived external threat that's approaching you. And I say perceived external threat because it actually might be that in reality it might be that it's actually not a threat, but it doesn't matter because in the situation you perceive it as a threat. So fear you can feel when something actually dangerous is approaching you, like a person with a knife, or like a fast car, or like a dangerous animal. Then it's quite good to feel fear, so that your body automatically can react with either often with fleeing, with reacting in some way, so that you can put yourself to safety, and if that doesn't work, then to fight. So those are in general the most common reactions when you have fear, when there is a perceived threat approaching you, external threat. But with anxiety, it's more subtle, it's more general, it's more like the threat, one could say, is actually coming often from the inside, from you. So it's not so it's not like with fear that it's so concretely like this is an external threat. With anxiety, it can also be that you are fearing something that's coming from the inside, or that it's something more that you are fearing something that more is an interpretation by you, that you are anxious about someone else's way of speaking, or anxious about what someone is saying to you, or anxious among other people, anxious about speaking in front of other people, or just anxious about walking outside. So then we can all agree that maybe it's not actually any danger around you, like you're talking to a person who actually isn't dangerous to you. This person won't attack you, it won't kill you. And if you're talking in front of a lot of people, these people won't kill you, so they are not actually dangerous. So you maybe you can't say, you wouldn't say that you are really scared. Well, if you are, then you really believe that they are scary, that the people will kill you. So that's more like on a paranoid or psychotic level. So that's a bit different, but let's just keep it more simple right now. So in that case, many would say that they are anxious. So when you're saying that you're anxious, it's more like this low intensive, or it can be high intensive, but it's more a feeling in the background, like in your body, like a sensation that you're anxious, and you don't know exactly always why, but it's just there, and it can, it's often very uncomfortable. And actually, it would be more comfortable sometimes, you would think, to feel fear instead. Since fear is more concrete, often you feel fear when an external threat is coming, and then you act, and then the threat is over and you're in safety again, if you're lucky. But with anxiety, it's not that evident. What is this threat? You don't know it. So it just goes on, and maybe it gets replaced by something else. So it's, quite uncomfortable. But so simply speaking, it's a signal to your body. It's a signal from your body to you that you are experiencing some kind of threat. So that is anxiety. So fear is, in a way, easier to deal with, since it's often indicated that you can do something about it. You can remove yourself from the threat, or you can extinguish the threat. You can do something about the threat, so you can make it go away in the short run anyway. So in a way, that's more comfortable. You have more control when you actually feel fear. However, again, as I mentioned before, it gets a little bit more complicated talking about fear. Or that's why I said perceived fear, since it might be that a person with a psychotic level of structuring in the brain, or more paranoid, actually have visuals of like something that you should be scared of and think is very real. And then they feel fear, but it's actually not real what you see, at least not in this dimension. It might be that these people see things that, most people don't. Actually, sometimes we talk about cats, that they see other things. They see things we don't see. So they're, very attentive, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, when with fear, it's mostly that it's an external threat, but it's good to say perceived external threat. So it's still an interpretation. Whereas with anxiety, it's more uncomfortable, since you don't see the threat, so it's less concrete. So one reason why anxiety gives us a lot of problems is because it can produce a lot of negative, judgmental thoughts toward ourselves. Since with a fear, it's more, I can point, well, that made me scared, so I have the right to be scared, and I have the right to be a victim now, and I have the right to take care of myself and be taken care of, and I know why I got scared. But with anxiety, it's not that evident, so it's a lot more easy for the brain to start to, think all sorts of thoughts as a reaction to the anxiety. And also it might be a lot more difficult for someone else to understand why you're anxious because it's not evident, you don't see it. And it's really a great challenge for your brain to just accept that you're anxious without trying to find the reason why you're anxious. Why is that a problem? Because often our brain does a quite poorly job of finding the reason why we're anxious. So then you have at least two problems. You're anxious, and also your brain has made a story of why you're anxious, or you taking a lot of energy to trying to find, the reason why you're anxious. So you're, ruminating these fear-based, anxious-driven thoughts. You're ruminating, why am I anxious? And it takes a lot of energy. And then it might be that you conclude, oh, this is why I'm anxious. I'm anxious because of my partner. It's something wrong with my partner. This is why I'm anxious. Or you might conclude, I'm anxious because of my parents. It's something wrong with my parents. It's their fault. Or I'm anxious because of school. So the brain often, concludes it's someone else's fault because that's more comfortable for us, obviously. So then you might get more problems, because if you start to blame your partner, for example, well, it's your fault that I'm anxious, then all of a sudden you have a conflict. So not only you're anxious, you also started a fight with the very person that you wanted to help you. So then you are anxious and you have a conflict. Or if you see the school as a problem, maybe you drop out of school and so you don't have an education anymore. So you're anxious and you cut off school because that made you anxious, so you don't want to do so. Then you have no education anymore. So it might give you extra problems if you, when you're anxious, also listen too serious to your brain's how your brain trying to find the reason why you're anxious. You can't really trust a brain that is functioning in a body that is anxious. So that's quite an important thing. Do not trust your thoughts when your body is anxious, aka scared. Your brain doesn't function very well, your rational brain doesn't function very well when your body is tense and when your body is high alert on threats all the time. Why? Because it's wired to just be aware of threats. So the way your thoughts go when your body is anxious is in a very particular way. It's not very positive, It's very difficult to have positive, optimistic, or rational thoughts when your body physiologically is experiencing anxiety, aka fear, when the body is tense, when it's not safe. So that's one quite important, tip to give you, or like clue, that anxiety is making your body. It's a signal to your body that you should be alert, that you should be aware of threats. So that's the main goal when you have anxiety. To feed your brain that now you should be aware of threats. And when your body is trying to signal that to you, to at the same time be rational and trying to find solutions, those two mechanisms doesn't go very well together. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what can you do then? If you're anxious and you don't want to be anxious, in your brain trying to find the solutions to it, what can you do to still find solutions and get help? I'm going to come back to that. Yeah, so don't trust your thoughts too much when you are anxious. It won't do you no good. And you first need to take care of your anxiety, like physically, taking care of lowering your anxiety. And then when you are calmer in your body, when you feel safe, then you can start using your rational mind again, your brain. And that actually goes the same for kids. Like a kid that is stressed or is upset, then it won't do so good to use words to try to calm the kids. Then what is most efficient and helpful is to use your body and your breath to calm the kid down. So to say, for example, hug the kid or caress or, breathe and be calm yourself, that calms the kid down. And then when the kid is calm, then you can talk about what happened and try to solve the problem. But when the child is upset, then it's no use. Then it's actually, I think it might just upset the child more. Your words, or you're like, what's the problem? Like, what is it? Like, or what should we, this is, or even saying you have nothing to be upset about. It only makes the situation worse. So it goes for children and also for adults to be able to solve your anxiety or to think about why you're anxious. You first need to be calm. You can't be anxious when trying to solve your anxiety, because then your thoughts are really filtered through this lens of threat. So your thoughts will be highly influenced by perspective of threat. So it's not truly, rational. It's not truly real or grounded. And so, anxiety can also show up in different ways, depending on who you are as a person, your genetics and your background and your upbringing and your culture. So let's talk a little bit about what signs of anxiety you can have. So the most, I guess, common sign of anxiety that most people can recognize themselves is tightness in the chest. So you feel this heaviness over the chest. It's like something is gripping and it might be difficult to breathe, and your whole chest area is tightened. And that symptom of anxiety often goes also together with being tense in general. So like tension in the muscles. And one calls that you are tense in and activated in your striated muscles. So those are the muscles in the body that is, the bigger muscles, like your legs or your arms, your hands, and your chest. So it's the body getting activated, like to have some action, to either it's mobilized. So it's your bigger muscles is mobilized to move. And then we come again into the fear reaction. So that's very similar, obviously, to how the body reacts when it feels fear, that it's getting ready to move. So those are the most common signs. Tension in the chest and tension overall in the body. But some people experience anxiety in a different way. So they don't actually get tense, they get the opposite. So they get, quite almost relaxed in the body, or it's not actually relaxed. It's more like they have resigned. So the whole body sort of gets lumps, and that often correlates with also feeling, having a bad stomach, like getting nauseous, for example, or needing to go a lot to the toilet, and maybe getting migraines, or like in general just feeling really, sick. That's also signs of anxiety. And one can say that then it's the involuntary muscles in your body that gets activated. So it's more your smooth muscles, which are the names of your inner organs. So for, how your body works, like your belly works. So that's your smooth muscle, and that's involuntary. So that's also a sign of anxiety. And that's more, complex, because then often people think, no, it's if you say, well, are you anxious? No, it's because something I ate, because I feel like I'm gonna throw up. But it might actually be that you're anxious. So that's quite a good, knowledge to have if you easily get nauseous, or if you have a lot of problems with your stomach. Just consider if it was something that you got triggered, that you got anxious about, that actually so your physical symptoms is actually more because of anxiety or emotion triggered problems. Another more physical or more subtle sign of anxiety that also can be a bit difficult to understand it since anxiety is cloudy thoughts. So you have more problem thinking. It's difficult to get a track of your thoughts and difficult to speak. It gets more also maybe your visuals, that you start to see more blurry actually. So it's more like your nerve system really get affected. So that's also anxiety. That can also be signs of anxiety. Actually, once I had a patient who she discovered that every time that she put on her glasses during therapy, she discovered that actually it was every time when she got anxious at work, and then she put on her glasses because she started to see worse. And it was not because of her vision, it was actually because of her anxiety. So your visual fields can then be affected. So you start to see blurry, you start to think more poorly, and that also goes hand in hand with the defense of dissociation. So that's quite high level of anxiety when you cannot think, and if you start to see worse, and also if you start to get tinnitus. So if it's ringing in your ears, that's quite high level of anxiety. And that also goes together with, for example, you detach from yourself and you dissociate, you put yourself somewhere else mentally. So that's a higher level of anxiety. Obviously more, it can create greater problems for you than the type of anxiety when you just get tense. Because when you're tense, you're often still present in the moment, and you often can still think okay. But if you can't think, and if you can't see, and if it's ringing in your ears, and maybe your body goes limp, then it's quite scary. So that you then get more scared of your reactions, and then you're totally disconnected. So that level of anxiety is higher, and it's also people who get that level of anxiety often have bigger problems in their life, both within themselves but also in their relationship. Because that's logical. If you can no longer be present with someone else when you're anxious, then that's going to give problems in the relationship, because the other person, going to have reactions to why can't you speak no more? Why can't I talk with you? Why do you say, weird things? And then you're going to have a problem in the relationship. So that's quite helpful to be aware and to know yourself. What type of anxiety do you get? Yeah, so if you have experiences of often in your life feeling detached, not present, and not, understanding what's wrong with me, but to just have this feeling of you're not really here. And obviously, if you're not really here, you cannot feel happy about your life because you're not present, you're somewhere else. It might be that you have problems with anxiety, that you are actually have quite high level of anxiety, and this is why you can't really be present in your thoughts, and you are then maybe using the defense of dissociation, so you're somewhere else. So then it might be good to start to be aware of, the reason why you're not happy in your life might not be because you don't have reasons to be happy, but it might be that you are, so to speak, too scared to experience it. So you're too anxious, which makes you detach. But if you are anxious in a way that you're more, stressed, so to speak, you are more tense in your body, then you might have a greater capacity to be present, but it's more that you get like symptoms of pain often from this type of anxiety. So if your muscle tense up a lot, and if it tenses up for a longer period of time, then it actually, can give muscles pain. So if you're going to massage very often, it might be wise to, we can consider, so why am I in pain? Is it only because of the way I'm walking and the way I'm moving in life? Or might it be because of emotional reasons? Might it be that I'm a bit anxious over things? I have stored up emotions that I get anxious about, and it gets stuck in the body, so that I get pain in my body. And then it might help with massage to get an instant relief, or it might help, with a deeper massage where they actually go to the emotions that might be stored up in the body. It might help, but for you to be aware of, like, what might be the reasons to my pain. So for myself, I've had, when I was 12, that was the first time that I experienced really, really severe back pain, the one where you cannot move. And then ever since, I've had problems with my back on and off in life. And I've tried different kinds of treatments, physical treatments, but then eventually I understood that, well, it's partly because of physical reasons, but for sure, every time I got really bad back pain was when I had some emotional problems, was when I couldn't, when I was anxious, tense for a longer period of time, and then eventually my body couldn't take it anymore, so it gave me pain. And one thing, you can think of it as if the body is like telling you, you need to be aware of that there is a problem in your, like, how you're dealing with your emotions. So here I'm giving you pain in your body so that you can be aware of and do something about it. So now, luckily, I don't suffer so much from back pains, not in that extent that I had then. But when I have some pain, then I know it's always because of, I've had a stressful time. It's because of stored up emotions. So it might be, helpful for you to see a pattern, like, if you have pain in your life, when does it occur? What's happening in your life then? Might it be because of you're tensing up for too long? So that type of anxiety is, anyway, it's more concrete, it's more earthy, it's more grounded, it's more easy to get help with in a way. Maybe I might be wrong, but it feels like it's more concrete. And the type of anxiety that goes more to your belly, it's more complex, because then you don't know. It might be because I'm also sensitive to certain kinds of foods, and it's very complex, the digestive system. So then it's more of a relationship within your physical body and your and psychological body. So that's like a more, well, actually, most of our problems are a relationship between our physical body and our emotional body. And that especially is evident when you have problems with your digestion, and if you have problem with nausea or pain in your belly. So it might be because of unprocessed emotions that gives you anxiety, and it might also be in correlation with what you eat, and that you have a DNA that is sensitive. And the third type of anxiety that I'm talking about is when you have cloudy thoughts, when you're not present. And that type of anxiety, when you are having trouble thinking, often goes together then with more regressive, primitive defenses, like projection. So projection is a defense where you have a thought inside or an emotion inside that you, for some reason, cannot deal with, so that you project it outside of you, often on someone else. So for example, if you are angry and if you cannot deal with it, if you cannot accept and admit it for some reasons, then you project it so that you think that someone else is angry at you. So that's the projection. And in order for you to do that projection, you need to have cloudy thoughts, you know? So cloudy thoughts, you're not thinking straight, often goes together with defenses like projection, externalization, when you see the problem outside of yourself. You are too anxious inside, you can't, think straight. So you're just aware of, okay, the threats are outside of me. So you project things inside of you and make it become outside. And that can, give you a lot of problems. Because then you not only have, the issue of that you're very anxious and you might have emotions that you're not understanding. You also get problems because you have placed it outside of yourself. And then again, in relationships, it can get very messy if you project your own problems on someone else, because that person then gets confused and gets, it's unfair. And that person also has his or her reactions to you, and then it's just a mess of projection on each other. So if you have that type of anxiety that you get so anxious so you cannot think, and then it's a very good thing to be aware of that so that you can stop there and not go to the defense of projection or to the defense of acting out. Because that's also a common defense when you can't think straight, that you act out because you're not really connected to yourself. So you're disconnected, you're not, you're not thinking straight, and then you just act out. For example, having an outburst of anger or blaming someone or panic attack or, go to violence. And often, people say, all of a sudden it went black or it went red, and then the other person was on the floor and I couldn't understand what was happening. That was having a blackout. And that is when you are so anxious, so it goes up into your head, so you can't think straight and your body just reacts, and then that's when you can be violent. So that's a good thing to know, that people that are violent, it's too simple to just think that they are bad people. It's because they have a lot of problems and they cannot regulate their anxiety. So they're very, very anxious people, but they're not aware of it. So the anxiety goes up to their head and they can't think straight. And then they see a threat in, say, their partner or the person at the bar or their child. And they don't see that their actual child, they don't see their partner, they don't see their actual human, they see just a threat, and they see something else, and the threat needs to go away, and then they become violent and hit or even worse than that. So that type of anxiety is often, more complex. It's often correlated with other types of problems like personality disorders, like if you're borderline structured or more on a psychotic level of structure in your brain and less neurotic. So that's that's a very complex area in itself. But just to put it simply, that's a more severe level of anxiety when you cannot think straight. And it's very helpful, I would say, for you if you get aware of, okay, I get easily anxious, and when I get anxious, I cannot think straight. So I shouldn't trust my thoughts. I should concentrate on making myself calm, and I should try to find the person that I find stable and that is can think more rational, and I should speak with that person. I should not speak with my own thoughts, because that only creates more problems. And if you have that type of anxiety that goes to your belly, that often correlates, like how do you know if that's anxiety or if it's just something you ate? It might be helpful to think if you also have regular periods of depression. Because that type of anxiety, when you get nauseous or when you get sick to your stomach, then you often are also prone to losing energy, resignate, and get burned out, and to just lose control, so to speak. You lose your energy, you lose your stamina, you just give up. So that kind of anxiety, when it goes to your intestines, often correlates with very low self-esteem, negative thoughts, being prone to see yourself as a victim and hopeless and helpless and cannot do anything about it. Whereas when you get anxious and you get more tense, then that often goes together with defenses like intellectualizations or isolate your to detach emotionally, to tense up. That's but you're still quite stable. You're still quite here. And then of course we have the anxiety where you get panic attacks. Where you cannot regulate yourself at all, when you start to hyperventilate, and that also can, that's also a severe problem for many people. And funny enough, many people with problems with panic attacks, they often describe it as they're overly attentive to their anxiety or through signs in the body. So that's often how people with panic attacks describe, like, I'm always worried about panic attacks. I'm, looking for the signs. But often it's actually that if you have panic attacks, it's actually that you often have denied early signs of anxiety for some reason, so that the anxiety gets more intense without you being aware of it until it's a full-blown panic attack, and then it's too late for you to regulate it. So that's often the case with panic attacks, that you have a lot of denial, for example, as a defense, so that you haven't paid attention to the early signs of your anxiety. So all in all, anxiety problems can give us a lot of symptoms. It can give us a lot of bodily symptoms, like we can feel sick. And then that also turns into the discussion of being burnt out, like and of the issue of stress, and stress in our society. Stress makes us sick. But the more subtle description of stress is, different types of anxiety. So it's good to be aware of what type of anxiety you most often get, so you can get to know yourself better. That's always the first step, to get to know your defenses, to get to know your anxiety, to be more aware of the signs. That's the first step of then later on being able to do something about it and to accept it, and also the first step to self-love is first to admit that something is there. And so when you understand what anxiety is and you can see the early signs, then it might also be good for our understanding to understand, why do we have anxiety then? Like, what function does it serve? Like, what's it good for? And like I mentioned before, it's a sign from the body that you are experiencing some kind of threat. So it's actually, you can, anxiety is very uncomfortable, but you could see it as as your body's as an act of love from your body, or your body's trying to protect you. So your body is perceiving some sort of threat, and it's trying to tell you that by giving you a symptom. Oh, thank you very much for that symptom. Very nice that you gave me the symptom of not being able to think, or you gave me the symptom of nausea. Thank you very much. Loving kindness. Our body is so nice. But in a way, it is, because it's thinking it's doing a great job. It's thinking it's doing something good for us. It's protecting us. And actually, don't get me wrong, sometimes we should feel anxious. Like, it also contains a lot of information. Like, if you feel anxious with a certain person, then it's good to ask why. So you either get information about yourself, or it might also give you information about the other person simultaneously. So it's one way to look at it, as a give. It's a sign. It's a help to give us information. So emotions are information to us, and anxiety is information about threats inside ourselves, or sometimes outside ourselves. So the function is to help us survive. Yeah. So the function is an evolutionary thing. Evolutionary rest, that it's how our body is trying to make us survive better by perceiving threats. The problem today, though, is that for many of us, not at all of us, and not at all in all countries, but for many of people in Western countries, they do live quite safe lives where they have a job and where they have food and money and so on. So they don't have like actual external threats all the time around them to be aware of. But the body still wants to, help us with perceiving threats. So it's like it doesn't know what to do. So it makes up threats. So if it has nothing to be scared of, it's like the body is making something up to be scared of. And that might be your own emotions or the emotions in someone else. So our body is always looking to help us better and to look for threats and protect us. And one clue to well-being is to help the body understand that it doesn't have to look for threats all the time, and to sort of tune into a higher vibe of consciousness, to instead of a lower vibe where you're scared and you just look for bad things all the time, because that's maybe how you were brought up, and also sometimes society helps us to promote that mindset a lot, to always look for signs how we can be hurt. But that's not a recipe for well-being. So one clue in how to promote well-being is actually to be able to leave that mindset of threat, to leave that mindset of being scared all the time, and instead entering the mindset of love, entering the mindset of being open to receive love, and to have trust in that love is also for you, and to have trust in things are going to be okay. Everything is not trying to hurt you all the time. Everything is not dangerous all the time. Some people are good to you, and some events are good to you, and maybe life is good to you. So that's a clue to well-being, to actually try to leave this mindset of danger, which might be very difficult for some people who have a lot of reasons to look out for dangers all the time. But to try to leave that, the loyalty to this mindset of danger, and instead entering a mindset of optimism, or entering a mindset of it's okay, entering a mindset of trust, of I'm loved, and I want to love, I want to give, and I want to receive. That mindset, we can call that having a higher vibe, higher frequency, instead of this lower frequency where you're just, scared all the time. In that vibe, it's possible to find happiness and true peace and true well-being. It's very difficult to find happiness when you're in this lower vibe, this lower mindset where you're just looking for threats. So that is, I suppose, a big question in life. Like, if you are brought up in an environment that was very unsafe to you, or in a country, in a culture that was very unsafe for you, of course your body is getting programmed to all the time look for threats. So eventually being scared is more familiar and safe to you than being happy, having trust, and to let go and just, go with the flow. All of a sudden that's not a safe state for you, because if you're happy and if you're not being aware of your surrounding, who is going to be aware of the surrounding? The surrounding is dangerous. So for many people, or actually I would say, the problem for many people today is not actually bad feelings, it's not actually negative feelings, it's actually positive feelings. That's the major problem for many people, that the ability to tolerate positive feelings. That's nearly impossible for someone who was brought up in a environment where they were scared and they had reasons to be scared all the time. Like a child is very sensitive and very open. And if you're scared as a child, if your attachment figures doesn't take care of you, and you enter the world with this feeling that I'm alone and everything is up to me and I cannot trust anyone, it's a challenge to later in life to leave that mindset and to welcome a mindset where you are loved, trusted, and you can trust other people, and to have a positive outlook for life. That's a whole other video series, how to leave the loyalty, how to get your body to understand that it's safe now, how to get your body to understand it's safe and you can trust, but still to have the ability to look for danger, to look out for dangers when you should, because it's not either or. It's not that you should always feel fear or never feel fear. Fear is also an important emotion, obviously, but the task is to know when should I feel fear and when it's not necessary. Another important thing to know about anxiety is to know the difference of anxiety and of core emotions. So sometimes people, they think that they are angry when they are actually very anxious. And it's just that it's defensive anger. It's a defense, it's an anger to protect the fear that they actually feel inside. Or sometimes we can talk about toxic positivity. So when people think that they are happy or very positive, it's actually a defense toward the actual depression that they have. And the positivity is a denial of the depression that they actually have and the fear and anxiety that they actually have. So happiness can sometimes actually be that you are anxious. And how to know the difference? Well, it's if the happiness is more forced, if it's more manic, if it's more controlling, like everything needs to be really good right now and I'm really, really happy and this is going to be really well, then it's actually not really happiness, it's more fear driven. It's the same with anger. If anger is really controlling and if it's really invading and if you really need to get it your way, then it's actually not anger, or it's anger mixed with a lot of anxiety. So yeah, it might be anger, but it's mixed with a lot of anxiety. Same goes for happiness. It might be happiness mixed with anxiety. Also, grief might be mixed with anxiety when it goes instead to really pure grief, when you grieve something and you let go of it and then you move on. But grief mixed with anxiety instead becomes this, where you're just in a victim position and you feel hopeless and it's just mixed with a lot of depressive feelings and thoughts. Then it's more mixed with anxiety and it's not actually experiencing core emotion of grief. Same goes with guilt. Guilt in its pure form is like actually a feeling of wanting to repair and wanting to do something good for someone that you hurt. But if it's filled with a lot of anxiety, then guilt instead can become very destructive. It can turn into self-hate, where you're actually not at all doing something good for the one that you hurt, but instead you're doing really bad things to yourself. So to be aware of, when is it actually a core emotion that I'm having? Because then it's free from anxiety. Then you feel calm inside. If you have anger without anxiety, you feel calm inside when you're speaking your truth. If you're happy, it's often, if you're truly happy without anxiety, it's often this peaceful, calm, serenity, feeling. Of course, you can laugh and stuff, but you feel calm inside. So explore whether you can actually feel your core emotions or if it's actually mixed up with anxiety, and then see if you can understand or deal with to calm yourself down, or to understand why am I anxious and why maybe do I get anxious every time I feel something positive. So coming back to what I spoke to before, for many of us, the problem is actually not negative feelings in our lives. It's our not being able to tolerate positive feelings. So that's actually another video I'm going to talk about self-sabotage, but that's very, very common with people who have self-sabotage, that every time when life is good and every time when you actually feel something good, then your body gets really scared, because feeling something good might losing control and might mean losing control and might mean to leave this controlling low vibe mindset of being scared all the time. So it might mean being more open, more vulnerable, and more receiving, which maybe for you is acquainted to being really hurt, to being really scared, and disaster. So maybe in your life, when you start to feel positive feelings, your body gets really alert, like this is really danger, do not, watch out. Now you're feeling positive feelings, things are gonna go really downhill from here. It's gonna be really, really dangerous. So your body gets really anxious, and then eventually it contaminates the happy feeling, and eventually you do something destructive instead. You maybe you start to binge eat, or you start to avoid, you start to flee, you start to pick a fight, or you hurt yourself, or you hurt someone else, or you do a lot of shopping, or you drink alcohol or something. So that also might be something to be aware of. Do you have self-sabotage coming in, actually triggered sometimes when something positive is happening to you? Because positive feelings is acquainted to being hurt, and that's dangerous. So then instead you go back to feeling bad again. And if life doesn't make you feel bad, well, then you do it yourself. So that's self-sabotage, when you make sure that you're always coming back to feeling bad. And you can do it in many ways. You can do it by actions, but also making yourself feel depressed by your own thoughts. So if life is good and you're feeling yourself getting depressed again, just be aware of how did I manage to do that now? And so maybe it's because it's more safe, and it's more safe to be depressed than to be happy, unfortunately. Okay, so last thing then, what do we do with this anxiety? So how do we deal with it? How to regulate your anxiety? And that's, the most difficult question. And that's also very individually what works for you. But the first step to regulate your anxiety is to be aware of that you have it. And to really stay on that first step, that I have anxiety right now. So that's a really important step, to own that this is my anxiety. I'm tense, or I'm feeling bad in my stomach, or I cannot think straight. So that's the first step. And why is that step so important? Well, because if you recognize you are anxious, but then you don't really own it, and you start to think, well, it's because of someone else, then again, you get a lot of trouble. Because then all of a sudden you don't only have problems with your anxiety, you have problems dealing with other events as well. So first step is to recognize, this is my anxiety. And actually, that's a very soothing and regulating thing to do, to maybe say out loud, I am very anxious right now. Signs of my anxiety is because I'm very tense, or I cannot think straight. I almost feel scared. I don't feel present. And to really stay and say that out loud, and maybe to someone else, to a friend. Often when you speak open and vulnerable and honestly, owning your own body, then you take responsibility of it. And that is in itself very regulating. So if you try that, to be really open and to be really accountable for, this is just my anxiety, and not go into solutions with it, then most of you're probably going to notice that it's going to feel better when you do that. It's gonna lower if you just stay with yourself, because that is, what is it that you are doing then when you're naming your anxiety? You are being present. And presence is actually the most important clue to how you feel well-being and positive feelings. You can only feel positive feelings if you're really present, and if you're really present in the now. So that's also, a weapon towards anxiety, or how to help yourself with anxiety, to exercise presence. And you do that by naming, I am anxious right now. And then you can think of, okay, what things calms me down when I'm anxious. And many of you may be asked, well, I like to distract myself. I like to watch a series. I like to go out for a run. I like to shop. Of course, that might help with the anxiety short run, but in the long run it doesn't go away, and it actually just makes it worse. So be aware if what calms your anxiety down is actually just avoidance strategies and distractions. So if you don't go that direction, if you don't go to avoidance, so what other stuff can calm your nervous system down? Well, like I said before, with a child, you hug it, and you caress it, and breathe. Yeah, so that's just that simple. It's very simple. You name your I'm anxious, and these are the signs of my anxiety. And then you either get someone else, non-triggered person, like another, nice person, to hug you, and you receive that hug, and you get help from that person to calm you down. And maybe if it's a very close person, to be close so that you can feel that person's breathing. That's magic. That's really magic. If you're really close to someone and if you breathe together. And why is that magic? Because it resembles the baby and the mother. So when the baby is close to the mother's heart and chest, and the baby regulates itself by the mother's breath and body warmth. And that is also why babies, like adoptive babies or babies who for some reason haven't been close to their mother the first hours or the first days or the first weeks or the first years in their life, they will not probably be well later in life. Why? Because they haven't gotten that first experience of being regulated automatically by their mother, so they cannot regulate themselves. So then you have a more difficult job to do when you are an adult. You don't know how to regulate yourself, but this is how you can learn. So, borrow a close person, another person, and borrow their breath. And if there is not another person there, then you can do it with yourself, your own breath. And actually, it might be helpful to sit like in a child's position. So sort of caress yourself and almost sit like in a position that feels comfortable and reminds you of childhood. And almost, for some people, it helps to rock yourself. So it's sort of like a soothing thing to do. And you see if it helps or not. For some people, it might, get more anxiety triggered by that. So you have to experience yourself. But anyway, some sort of caressing and some sort of getting in touch with your breathing. And all in all, things that are soft and cozy make the environment, gentle when you're anxious, so that you can help to create the environment so that you easier can calm down. And when you are calmer in your body, then it might be helpful to talk with someone, to talk to a friend about it. But first, the body, always the body first. And today there are tons of different body techniques like yoga or different kinds of breath techniques that you can use in order to calm your body down and to just breathe in and hold the breath and then breathe out. That's also a very simple thing to do. So naming I'm anxious and then breathing in, hold the breath, and then breathing out. And then do that again, like breathing in, hold the breath, and then to breathe out. And do that for at least 3 times, but maybe 5 minutes to center yourself. That's a really simple but good technique. So all of these techniques of regulating yourself by breathing or hugging someone else or hugging yourself is actually just to get back to your body. That's the main goal, to get present in your body again. And when you're present in your body, then you have more capacity to think, okay, what am I gonna do next? Okay, now I wanna go out for a walk. So maybe then it's time to actually do something, and then it's not a distraction. So when you're first present in your body and you calm and a little bit more grounded, then you can do something, because then it serves you as a way to help you come back to to actually distract you a little bit. But then it's because you've grounded yourself first, and then maybe you want to make yourself get exposed to something positive again. So taking a walk or cooking dinner or making something that make you feel good. So I would say those are really simple but helpful techniques to center yourself again. But if you have issues like with nausea or like more subtle symptoms, then it often doesn't go away like immediately. It doesn't go away like if you're just centered in your body. Then it takes a longer time, and then you might have to go to therapy to understand, okay, what is it that actually triggers my anxiety, and why does it go to my belly? And because then often has to do with more negative thoughts that also is part of the whole symptom and picture. So that's more complex. But with this immediate anxiety, is to stop, to name the anxiety, and then to breathe, to calm yourself down, to be present and grounded. And then number 3, to take some action. Go for a walk, eat something, sleep, read, call a friend, watch a series. Then it's okay for action. So I read a quote the other day that said, action should always be informed by stillness. So when you act, you should always be still first. You should find the stillness first. If you're only still and you don't act, then obviously nothing's going to happen. Then you're passive. But if you act, but without having the stillness, then it's just fear-driven and it's just, hectic and manic. But find the stillness first, then you can distract yourself. Then you can act, or you can do something that makes you happier. But the key is to center yourself first. So this is how to deal with the anxiety in the short run. In the long run, it might be helpful to go to therapy and to understand what is it that triggers you, like what is it that's making you anxious. Is it any emotions that's stored up that you haven't dealt with that's making you anxious, and then you have to get help getting them out. And also to be aware of, is it that I easily interpret things in the wrong way, like I interpret threats all the time? So then you have to get help with thinking more rationally. So that's more in the long run, but in the short run, it's about centering yourself again. So I hope this video was helpful for you to get to know your anxiety better, what it is and why you have it, and also how to deal with your anxiety and how to live with your anxiety, because it's a part of you. So it doesn't go away by avoiding it or by suppressing it or detaching from it. You can look at it as a part of you that's needing to be nurtured, to be taken care of. So don't deny it, accept or face it, admit that it's there, admit its existence, so that you can know how to take care of it and be nice toward it. Calm yourself down, be nice, open and honest, because anxiety also contains some useful information about you, your past, your life, and other relationships. So take care of it nicely. If you found this video helpful, please be welcome to share with friends, partners, colleagues, family. And if you have something to comment, if you have a question, please comment that. Or if it's something yet you resonate with, or something you don't resonate with, or something you want me to explore further, please comment. If you don't have nothing to comment, you can just comment thank you. That would help me to spread these videos more so that I can continue to share what I know and my knowledge with you. So I would be very grateful for that. So thank you.